Hello and welcome to the Tweetcore Radio Hour. I'm your host, Mark Schuster, and I invite you to join me on my ongoing quest to seek out great new music, independent artists that we discover together in the far reaches of the social media universe. That was Won't Say Rabbit, the legendary Won't Say Rabbit, I should say, playing Laryngitis. I am developing a theme this week. Any guesses what it is? Based on that last song, you might be thinking, I know what the theme is. It's ailments. And though we may be heading into the heart of cold and flu season, that is not actually what this week's theme is. But I'll give you another few chances actually, to figure it out with these next tunes. couple of tunes that I think pair pretty nicely together. The first one was Goodnight, Mr. Hammons by Saves the Witch. That's from the album Sounds from a Burning Forest. After that, we heard Lost in Space by Timothy Simmons. That one's on his album Friends Meeting. I believe we may have played that one once before, but if not, happy to introduce you to it. It's a very cool track. By now, you've probably guessed what our theme is. I am playing all instrumental tracks this hour. Now, the first track I played, I said it was by Saves the Witch. It's an interesting project, and it's all one guy. His name's Eric Maines. And I interviewed him on my blog a little while back, and I was asking him about the name, and here's what he had to say. Originally, the project was called Save the Witch, and that's a name born out of accepting each other and loving one another despite the differences we may have. Internally, it had that name for a while, and as I prepared for the first release, I found that there was a project on Spotify with that name already. Granted, it seemed to be dormant. I could have used it anyway, but I didn't want the confusion, so I added the S. I'm pretty glad I did, though, because it also takes it from a statement to an action. Something that sounds more present, and living in a more present frame of mind is a huge inspiration for me creatively. Those are the words of Eric Maines on why he called his project Saves the Witch. His music has a bit of a Pink Floyd vibe, and I think the same can be said about the music of Timothy Simmons. Tim and I have been friends for a long time. I mean, since high school, so we're talking 30 years or so. And we've made some music together as well. In fact, that first track you always hear on the show is from our project Simmons and Schuster. I'll be playing another one of our tunes in a little bit, but for now, one thing to keep in mind about Tim is that he has a children's book out. It's called Seraphine Finds a Song, and he wrote and illustrated it. Definitely check that out, and check out some of the music that Tim and I recorded together. Here's a track called Dawn to Dusk. channeling a bit of a Brian Eno vibe on those tracks, a little bit ambient. In fact, that last act you just heard is called Ambienteer, with a track called Autmnal. And before that, keeping with the theme of seasons, I suppose, Mysteries of Spring. That one was by Android Invasion. Before that, Dawn to Dusk by Simmons and Schuster. That's me and my friend Tim Simmons from our album DOS, or DOS actually. DOS, as I'm sure you will recall, stands for Disk Operating System. Everyone needed a DOS disk back in the 80s when we wanted to start up our computers. But DOS, as some of our listeners may know, is Spanish for two. And of course, it was our second album. Our first was not called Uno, though. It was just called Simmons and Schuster. Second album called DOS. And it was actually a little bit of a joke. My idea of a joke, anyway. because on the cover I had the words, our names, Simmons and Schuster, above the word dose. So that's Simmons and Schuster overdose, or overdose on Simmons and Schuster. And so, you know, the old saying, if you have to explain a joke, it's not very funny. It was that kind of joke. Anyway, let's move from ambient to a slightly more jazzy sound. Here's the Ministry of Plausible Rumours, followed by the Paul Sanwald Quartet, followed by Art Block. Some jazzy tunes there. Fun fact, the first one and the third one both reference white horses. That first one was The White Horse by the Ministry of Plausible Rumours, and that third one was White Horses by Art Block from the White Horses EP. Art Block's really interesting. I found out about his music when I was reading the Eclectic Music Lover blog. That's a blog that is curated by Jeff Archuleta, and it's a really great blog. I really recommend if anyone's looking for a place to discover new music, give the Eclectic Music Lover blog some of your attention. You can find Jeff's blog at eclecticmusiclover.com. Oh, and another fun fact about those songs I played, that first one, The White Horse, that is named after apparently a bar in London, a tavern called The White Horse. We're all about the fun facts here on the Tweetcore Radio Hour. All the facts we share, guaranteed 100% fun. Like this one, that middle song we just played by the Sanwald Quartet, that one was called Imaginary Autumn. And if you'll recall back to the last ambient tune we played, it was called Autmnal. So not only are we sharing the fun facts, we're developing themes, we're doing some leapfrogging. Autmnal, White Horse, Imaginary Autumn, White Horses. Who knows what's going to come next? I mean, I sure don't. I'm just going to hit play and we'll just find out. We'll find out together what this next song's going to be. Here we go. Interesting mix of tracks. Very eclectic this week, if I do say so myself, as we explore instrumentals here on the Tweetcore Radio Hour. That first one you heard in that little group there, that was Table for 26. They were doing a cover of a Trombone Shorty song called Backatown. Now, Table for 26 is the project of a Philadelphia area musician. His name is Jeff Willett. I interviewed him almost exactly a year ago. It was January 11th. I interviewed him on my blog, January 11th of 2022. I also had the good fortune to work with him both in the studio and playing a couple of live gigs in the past. He's a really amazing musician. And with Table for 26, he demonstrates he's an amazing band leader and arranger of music. He also just has a good ear for recommending music. That track that we played after Backatown by Table for 26 was called Voyage. That's by a band called Kamancello. They're out of Canada. And Jeff recommended them to me. He just said, hey, you got to check these guys out. It's amazing music. You're going to love it. And I do. Cinematic, very moving. Not necessarily the usual fare I play on this show, but still, I hope you enjoyed it. And in case you're wondering, that name, Kamancello, that's based on the two instruments that you're hearing. One is a Persian instrument called a Kamanche, and the second is a cello. Put those together, you get Kamancello. Now, if you want to hear more from Kamancello, look him up on Bandcamp. It's spelled Kamancello. They have 3 EPs at the moment. Who knows? Hopefully they'll make some more. I think that's some pretty cool music. And if you want to look up Table for 26, I think the only place to find their music is on YouTube. So go to YouTube, look up Table for 26, and I think you will like what you hear. Up next, a track from my good friend, your good friend, our good friend, Brian Lambert. Here's un Amanecer. That was Un Amanecer by Brian Lambert. And I know I wowed you with my Spanish skills earlier in the episode when I told you that dos is Spanish for the number 2. Un amanecer is Spanish for a sunrise. Or maybe a sunset. Sunrise. I'm pretty sure it's a sunrise. In any case, that reference to a sunrise might give you a hint as to what Brian's cooking up in terms of lyrics for the next Star Crumbles album. Right now, though, I see we're running out of time, so I'm going to leave you with a couple of experimental tracks. Here's Megazillion with Under the Bed, followed by Descending Dreams by the La La Lets. Thanks for spending some time with me this week. I can't wait to hang out next week when we meet again right here on the Tweetcore Radio Hour.